I'm Lauren. Sitting in the car on the way home from that disastrous dinner, the silence was almost palpable. The weight of what had just transpired hung heavy between my husband, Ethan, and me. Outside, the streetlights flashed rhythmically across the windshield as we drove through the quiet Seattle streets, but neither of us spoke. It all started when Ethan came home one evening and told me his older sister, Victoria, was coming to town. Victoria was the kind of person who always flaunted her success. She'd married a wealthy businessman, Richard, and they lived in a luxurious penthouse in New York City. Ethan had always spoken about her with a mix of respect and caution. He said she was brilliant, but also incredibly opinionated and often condescending. I was the director of marketing at a well-known software firm in Seattle. I'd climbed the corporate ladder through years of hard work and dedication. My salary was quite high, significantly more than Ethan's, who worked as a graphic designer at a local agency. But for us, money had never been the focus of our marriage. We built our relationship on little things: Sunday brunches at our favorite cafe, late-night movie marathons, and inside jokes that only we understood. That evening, as Ethan stood in the kitchen, nervously ringing the ring on his finger, a habit he had when he was about to deliver bad news, he said, "Victoria's coming. She's flying in from New York. It's been ages since she last visited. She'll be here this weekend." I wiped my hands on the kitchen towel and leaned against the counter. I'd heard a lot about Victoria. I tried to sound calm and said, "It'll be nice to finally meet her." Ethan hesitated, and I knew there was more. "There's something I should tell you. I may have simplified a few things when I mentioned you to her." "Simplified? What do you mean?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He winced. "I told her you work in an office. I didn't go into details about your position or your salary. Or anything." He let out a nervous laugh and continued, "Victoria can be really intense about these things. I thought it'd be easier this way." The words hit me hard. "Easier? You mean it's easier than telling her your wife is more successful than you?" He quickly stepped closer. "That's not what I meant. It's just that Victoria has very strong opinions about people, and I didn't want the whole weekend to be filled with her judging us. If she thinks you're just a regular office worker, maybe she'll keep her thoughts to herself." I stared at him for a long time. I wasn't angry then, but I was deeply disappointed. I'd never placed importance on titles or money. I didn't expect Ethan to brag about my achievements, but hiding them made me feel like he was ashamed. Finally, I forced a small smile and said, "If that's how you want it." Ethan looked relieved, misunderstanding my consent. Later that night, after Ethan fell asleep, I sat by the window of our cozy apartment, looking at the Seattle skyline. I started thinking about myself, a confident and successful woman, and the ordinary office worker Ethan had described to Victoria. Instead of getting angry, I found an idea forming in my head. It was a bit crazy, a little reckless, but also extremely tempting. I decided to give Victoria exactly what she expected, but in a way she'd never anticipate. The next morning, I opened my closet, filled with tailored suits, silk blouses, and high-heeled shoes. I reached past them and pulled out a pair of old, faded jeans with frayed knees, a shapeless t-shirt from a local fair, and a pair of sneakers with peeling soles. I rummaged through an old box and found a well-worn canvas tote that I used in college. It was frayed at the edges, a far cry from the sleek leather briefcase I usually took to work. I removed all my makeup, leaving only a thin layer of moisturizer. I pulled my hair into a loose, messy ponytail. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I hardly recognized the person staring back. I looked like someone on their way back from a part-time job at a discount store, not a marketing director. I smiled. It was perfect. When Ethan walked into the bedroom and saw me, he stopped dead in his tracks. "Lauren, what on earth are you wearing?" "Just something casual," I replied innocently, with an exaggeratedly shy smile. "Casual? You look like... I mean, are you serious?" He stammered. I tilted my head and reminded him, "You told Victoria I'm just a regular office worker. I thought I'd dress the part." "Don't you think it sells the story better?" Ethan sighed and rubbed his temples. "I didn't mean for you to go this far." I teased him, raising my voice a bit. "What's wrong? Is this too low class for her high standards?" Ethan opened his mouth and then closed it, clearly torn between frustration and disbelief. "I just don't want this to get out of hand. It's just a dinner." I shrugged, slinging the frayed tote over my shoulder. "What's the worst that could happen?" As we drove to Victoria's place later that evening, Ethan was visibly nervous. He kept glancing at me, as if hoping I'd change my mind. Finally, he said, gripping the steering wheel tightly, "Victoria isn't a bad person. She's just very particular. She has strong views on how people should live their lives." I looked out at the setting sun and said, "So, she's a self-appointed expert on everyone else's lives." Ethan exhaled. "Something like that." I smiled faintly. "Well, I suppose this will be an eye-opening experience for both of us." When we arrived at Victoria's luxury apartment building in the heart of the city, it was everything I expected. The building was sleek and modern, with a marble lobby that screamed exclusivity. As we stepped into the elevator, I adjusted my ponytail and rehearsed a few more lines in my head, adding a touch of naivete to my tone. The door opened before Ethan could knock twice. Standing in the doorway was Victoria, looking every bit the wealthy socialite. She was tall and elegant, wearing a stunning red silk dress that clung to her figure. Her hair was perfectly styled in soft waves, and her diamond earrings sparkled in the light. "Lauren, I presume," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Yes, it's so nice to finally meet you, Victoria." "Ethan's told me so much about you," I said brightly, pitching my voice a bit too high. She extended her hand in a rather haughty way, as if it was a privilege to shake it. I took it with both hands and gushed, "Wow, your skin is amazing. Do you use some fancy European skincare?" She blinked for a moment, then recovered with a light laugh. "Yes, I do take good care of my skin. Please come in. And take off your shoes, I just had the floors cleaned." I stepped inside, and the apartment was a sight to behold. It was filled with expensive art pieces, hand-woven rugs, and crystal chandeliers. "It's like a museum in here," I exclaimed, my eyes wide with feigned awe. "I'm afraid to touch anything." Victoria beamed. "Most of these are from our travels. Richard collects art as an investment. That painting over there is by a famous French artist. It cost a fortune." "Richard is your husband, right?" I asked, pretending to forget the name Ethan had mentioned multiple times. "Of course," she replied with arrogance. "He owns a chain of high-end restaurants across the country. We met at one of his places, and it was love at first sight." I clasped my hands together. "How romantic." Ethan and I met at the bus stop. I was running late for work, and he lent me his umbrella. There was a brief silence. Ethan coughed awkwardly, and Victoria's smile tightened slightly. "Well, love comes in all forms," she said. "Yes, it really does." "I almost dropped my coffee on him that day," I added, and Victoria pressed her lips together. She quickly changed the subject. "Ethan told me you work in an office." I nodded eagerly. "Yes, I'm just an assistant. I file papers, make coffee, and answer the phone. Nothing too important." "I see," she murmured, and I could see the triumph in her eyes. She was clearly satisfied that I was exactly what she'd expected, an unremarkable person. From then on, Victoria settled into the role of the worldly mentor. With a glass of expensive champagne in hand, she started lecturing me. "You know, Lauren, in today's world, a woman can't just rely on her husband. She needs to have her own cultural and intellectual pursuits. Richard and I attend art auctions and charity galas regularly. It's all about expanding your horizons." I widened my eyes and nodded. "Oh, absolutely. I read the free magazines at the dentist's office when I go there. Victoria blinked and forced a laugh, thinking I was joking. I mean real art and culture, not those cheap magazines. She went on to talk about the penthouse in New York that was worth over $5 million, the private yacht they rented in the Mediterranean, and the upcoming charity event they were hosting that would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I gasped in feigned astonishment. $5 million. That's so much money. How many pizzas could you buy with that? Ethan coughed into his hand to hide a laugh, and Victoria shot him a sharp look. Then she pulled out her designer purse. This is a limited edition Gucci bag. It cost $15,000. Richard bought it for me as a gift. I took it reverently and asked, "It's so soft. Why does it cost so much?" She looked annoyed. It's Gucci. It's about prestige and exclusivity. I echoed, exclusivity. Does that mean there's only one like it in the world? Of course not. But there's a long waiting list. You can't just buy one off the shelf, she snapped. Oh, like those limited edition sneakers. They're so hard to get, and everyone wants them, I said brightly. Victoria's jaw tightened. It's not the same. This is a piece of luxury, not a pair of shoes. Just then, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and said casually, "It's my boss." I hit decline and slipped the phone back into my bag. Victoria stared at me in horror. Aren't you going to answer that? You could get fired for ignoring your boss. I shrugged. It's after work hours. Our company has a strict policy about work-life balance. I'm not required to answer calls outside of work unless it's an emergency, and this isn't. Victoria looked at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. That's ridiculous. If you want to get ahead in life, you have to make sacrifices and always be available. I looked at her curiously. You think that's the only way? She crossed her legs and said firmly, that's the only way. When you're serious about success, you can't draw lines between work and personal life. For the first time that evening, I started to feel my patience wearing thin. I had been playing along, but now, as she sat there, lecturing me while flaunting her expensive possessions, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat back, my expression calm but firm. You know, Victoria, I've been listening to you all night, and I realize that you haven't said anything about what truly makes you happy. I know the price of your apartment, your bag, and your husband's restaurants, but I don't know anything about you. Where's the passion? Where's the joy in your life? You haven't even asked Ethan how he's doing or what he's been up to. Victoria blinked, clearly taken aback. I of course care about Ethan. I interrupted her. You assumed a lot about me tonight. You thought I was beneath you because of my clothes and the simple job you thought I had. You judged my worth based on money and possessions. But the truth is, those things don't define who a person is. How dare you? She hissed, her composure starting to crack. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just holding up a mirror. You've built your identity around material things, but they don't tell me who you really are. They just show what you've bought. Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it, unable to find the right words. Ethan stared at his sister and then at me, and I could see a new respect in his eyes. I stood up slowly. You wanted to see if I was good enough for Ethan. Well, the truth is, I don't need your approval. Your opinion says more about you than it does about me. Victoria's face turned red, and she sat there in silence. I picked up my frayed tote and said, Now, if you'll excuse us, I think this dinner is over. We walked out of the apartment, and the ride home was silent. Just as we turned onto our street, Ethan exhaled and said quietly, I'm sorry. I turned to him, for what exactly? For everything. For not being honest with Victoria, for downplaying who you are. I thought I was protecting you, but I realize now that I hurt you. I paused and then said, it did hurt, not because I need you to brag about me, but because hiding my success made it seem like you were ashamed of me. He slumped in his seat. I wasn't ashamed. I'm so proud of you. It's just that Victoria always makes everything a competition, and I didn't want you to be on the receiving end of her judgment. I looked out of the window. There's a difference between avoiding a fight and pretending there's nothing worth fighting for. I don't need you to shield me. I need you to stand by me. He nodded slowly. You're right. I'll never downplay who you are again. I promise. 2 days later, Victoria left Seattle without saying goodbye. Life went back to normal, but something had changed between Ethan and me. We understood each other better. A few weeks later, on a sunny Sunday, I was at the local farmer's market. I was wearing the same faded jeans and canvas tote. People around me didn't know or care about my job title or my salary. The vendors greeted me by name, a little girl offered me a piece of strawberry, and a passer-by complimented my smile. In that moment, I felt wealthy in a way that money could never buy. I learned that true worth isn't measured by material possessions or social status. It's about how you treat others, how you build meaningful relationships, and how you stay true to yourself. And in the end, I realized that I had already won in the most important way.